Please welcome to the stage Joanna Sustento. Go and rock it,
Good morning. So I am Joanna Sustento. I'm from Tacloban City, Philippines. And I speak on behalf of a community that lived through one of the strongest storms in human history. Now I want you all to close your eyes for a moment. Don't sleep. I know you had a good time last night, but please spare me another 15 minutes. So I want you all to close your eyes, everyone, and please imagine your favorite childhood memory. Now open them. As for me, my favorite childhood memory would be moments spent with my whole family at home or in the beach, camping. And I want to introduce you to my family. So my father was a lawyer. My mom was a manager of a government bank. I had two older brothers and gained a sister and a nephew/playmate when my eldest brother got married. And then there's me, the youngest and the only girl in the family. So being the only girl, my parents, especially my dad, would often call me princess. I didn't really like it when he called me that. But little did I know that years later, I would terribly miss being called princess. Another favorite childhood memory of mine would be my love for typhoons. Yes, I loved typhoons. Emphasis on the D because it's in the past tense. I don't love them anymore. So I love typhoons because it would mean that classes would be suspended for days. There would be no work. And then I would just be at home with my family, making the most out of the cozy and chilly weather. Sometimes there would be blackouts. We would be out of power for days, but it's always fun to be around them. However, all of that changed when almost 6 years ago, on November 8, 2013, my family and I were in an epic battle amidst the wind, the rain, and the 15-feet-high storm surge brought by Typhoon Haiyan. That day left me with no choice but to witness my father slip through my grasp as he was being swallowed by the deluge of Haiyan. It was also the day I watched my mother die in my arms, and I was forced to make the most difficult decision of letting her go so I may live. In a span of 2 hours, just like the thousands of people in my community, I lost everything I've ever loved and known. Haiyan took away my parents, my eldest brother, my sister-in-law, and my 3-year-old nephew, leaving only me and my older brother as survivors. Witnessing death taking away your family one by one, you begin to think that maybe giving up isn't bad after all. Because what is life going to be now that the people you love the most are gone? And it made me realize that social status, material possessions, career, accomplishments, money, all of these mean nothing if you don't have a family to genuinely share it with. All of a sudden, I just wanted to leave Tacloban and never ever come back. I felt so broken, exhausted, and everything just hurt. My depression was taking its toll that it came to a point wherein I regretted my decision to choose to be alive. Because it meant that I had to wake up every single day with that void in my heart, with that yearning for comfort and familiarity that only my parents could ever fill. It meant that I had to wake up every single day with the uncertainty and the realization that it was all up to me now. I felt that I cannot afford to fail anymore because my strongest support system, my family, is gone. And the fear of failure made me scared to take risks. It made me unambitious and mediocre. So I just wanted to run away from it all because home didn't feel like home anymore, but I didn't know where to go. As time passed, I had the opportunity to work with fellow typhoon survivors and people who helped in the rehabilitation period of my hometown. And every single day spent with them just changed my mindset. I realized that I should not limit myself on thinking about my family's security alone, because I am just a small part of this bigger community. It made me realize that, yes, Super Typhoon Haiyan took away everything from us, but it left us with nothing but stories. Stories that are way too precious and compelling to walk away from. Stories that deserve to be heard. And I can no longer afford to just sit and wait for someone else to step up, because the more stories of loss, grief, and pain that I discover, the more I realize that we do not deserve to live like this for the rest of our lives. And the thing about witnessing, the thing that inspires me most, is when I witness my community's strength, their ability of the human spirit to turn suffering into strength, to always end the story in hope and in gratitude. Witnessing my community's resilience despite the hell on earth that we were living ignited something within me to do more for them. Writing and storytelling became my tool, and more importantly, that's when healing for me began. I remember making a commitment to myself years ago to use what's left of me, my mistakes, my experiences, my challenges, my vulnerabilities, my stories, turn them around and be willing to use them for something bigger than myself. In the years that followed after Typhoon Haiyan, I was given countless opportunities to speak to different communities in the Philippines and abroad, on behalf of the people severely impacted by the climate crisis, and how it violates our basic human right to a safe environment. Since then, I've made it my mission to share the story of what climate change means on our side of the world. To the global north, the impacts of climate change is something that's going to happen in the distant future. But to us, it is the reality we are currently living in and have been adapting and enduring for the past years. The climate crisis is as real as a father who has worked all his life only to wake up one day and realize his livelihood has been torn apart. The climate crisis is as real as a mother bearing the agony of looking for her missing husband all day and sleeping beside the dead bodies of her children at night. It is as real as a child looking forward to get an education only to find out his school is damaged and he can no longer study anymore. It is as real as the thousands of families who lost their homes and livelihoods, whom until today are living in makeshift homes, struggling to make ends meet with little to no food and clean water. It is as real as the thousands of survivors who lost their families, and with it, their dreams and ambitions. We are a community living in a great injustice because we are least responsible for climate change, but we are the ones who are gravely affected by its impacts. We do not have the luxury to deny and debate about it because we are too busy and frankly too exhausted from surviving one catastrophe after another. When Haiyan struck, the world gained a new perspective about climate change. It is not just about warming oceans, dying polar bears, the melting polar ice caps in the Arctic. When we talk about climate change in the Philippines, especially in Tacloban, we talk about losing everything we've ever loved and worked hard for. 3 years into my journey of climate activism, I have been given the rare chance to go on board the Greenpeace Arctic Sunrise ship and sail through the Arctic in 2017. I was one of the activists who participated in a peaceful protest against the Norwegian government's plans for opening up new areas of oil drilling. I stayed on the ship for almost 3 weeks and shared our story to the youth and parliament of Norway. That's me over there, immersed in the Arctic waters, with depths ranging 300 to 400 meters, and I had no idea that it was that deep. So, while I was immersed in Arctic waters, it dawned on me that, so this was in 2017, 4 years ago from 2017, I was immersed in storm waters out of circumstance. But here, I returned to the waters out of choice. Last year, I went on an amazing journey for a month in Europe. I was one of the volunteer activists who participated in another peaceful protest against the biggest coal power plant located in Poland. Then I was finally able to join the climate pilgrimage. It is a 1,500-kilometer walk across 6 countries over 65 days from Rome to Poland, where the UN Climate Summit was held. The goal of the pilgrimage is to bring the message of Pope Francis' Laudato Si on our care for a common home and engage in communities all over Europe to talk about climate change, how all of us coming from the different parts of the world are affected by it, and why collective action is important. Recently, last month, I staged a lone protest in front of the Shell headquarters in Manila to kick off the series of global climate strikes happening that week. The goal was for them to respond to the people's call for accountability for the climate crisis, for they have known for decades of the catastrophic impacts of their business practices, but despite their technological and financial capacity to curb its severity, they blatantly chose profit over people's lives. In less than 2 hours into my peaceful protest, I was carted away by 40 police officers and was sent to their precinct for questioning. Few hours later, I returned to the site to deliver my open letter to Shell. I believe that the voice of climate-impacted communities from all over the world is vital in the global fight for our climate, because we are witnesses of extreme weather events. Our experiences, our stories, put a human face on the numbers and statistics of climate science. I want to do this because my community, we are not mere statistics. We have lives, we have dreams, we have families whom we love so dearly. We have beliefs and advocacies we want to pass on to our children. The things that we value most in our lives are at risk, and I want to be part of the movement that protects it. When Typhoon Haiyan struck, our small city of Tacloban became known as Ground Zero, the city that became the graveyard of its own people. But we strongly refuse to be known just as hapless victims of typhoons. We are a people who have survived and decided that it is no longer enough to just adapt and endure. We have finally learned to fight for our lives and the lives of the future generation. Our collective experience is what drives us to continue sharing our stories. It became a way for us to mourn, to remember, and to heal. Now, our stories became a way for us to transform and fight, because we have realized that living a safe, decent, and dignified life is not a privilege. It is a human right. Protecting human rights from the impacts of climate change may look like a David and Goliath battle. One can just easily back down. But if you come from a place where you've witnessed people being pushed to their limits every single day, but still manage to defy the impossible, it is hard to find an excuse to give up. To the world, November 8, 2013 was the day Super Typhoon Haiyan ravaged the Philippines and left it in ruins. To us, it will always be the day the strongest storm in human history met the strongest people. Thank you.
Have your moment.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. And I know that was a very deeply personal, touching story to tell, so thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for reminding us that sometimes when you have lost things, stories are all you have. And we commend you for pushing past that and for creating change.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Bigger than yourself. You're right, we have no luxury to delay over our actions and our movements. I love that Joanna has shared also not only the story of her own journey, but that all of our activists here have given us some great examples of other change makers in the world who are moving to do things. So I'd like to invite all of them back up on the stage again, because I think they deserve another round of applause just for their sheer tenacity and fearlessness.